Bro, when I heard the clicker sound for the first
Yes.
time, I got chills that went from top to bottom. It
Hell
was the
yes.
perfect scene. And shout out to the actor or actress who was in the clicker suit doing the mannerisms
Oh
and
my God,
like
it's perfect.
It's like, but we cannot go. It's so overacted. It's
Like high school, like a high school play. What is up? As I cough into the mic, welcome to the Theater Room, episode 57. We got a big episode with some big announcements that just happened. But before we jump into that, Scythe, Carmine, Zuplex, Wade Pool, whatever you want me to call you. Welcome to Theater Room, episode 57, guys.
What's going on?
What's going on?
So, I mean, listen, clearly I'm excited, but Fred, how excited are you with the news that we just got?
I'm excited to see how they're gonna incorporate him into the MCU, knowing that his version of Wolverine already died.
Yeah, who knows, right?
So,
well, I guess they have it built in, right, that he could be
in the future, though.
What time frame are they going to strip him out of to pull him into Deadpool and then into the MCU? He's got to jump two realities, I guess.
I mean, for those who didn't see the news, Ryan Reynolds released today on Instagram and really on social media across the world that Wolverine himself, Hugh Jackman, is coming back as Wolverine for Deadpool 3. It was a big joke, right? He said they don't have a script or he doesn't know what the story's going to be about, whatever. But then Hugh Jackman, he walked by and he goes, you want to play Wolverine again? And he goes, yeah, why not? And that's it. So,
see, that's the thing. He said, do you want to play Wolverine one more time?
Right. Those are his exact words.
That's the key phrase for me for this.
Yeah.
Ring of Power. So are we all caught up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
All right. Carmine made a face that looked like he was about to drop some diarrhea.
Let him go first.
Go ahead, buddy. Go. What's your take on this? What's the
it's the other way.
Yeah, other way. Yeah.
This way.
What's the hot take?
There we go.
Yeah, he's on this side over here.
So we finally have an idea of where this story is going. What I can't deal with anymore, and this is super apparent in this episode, it's like high school play level acting going on in this episode. Bad, bro. Like when the elf that got captured, the main elf, is talking with the chick on the tower, and they're like trying to figure out where the battle plan is gonna go. It's like shitty Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I don't so ridiculous, bro. And then on top of all that, we have the training scene with the female elf and the
Galadriel.
And the guys and everything like that. Dude, you know what that reminded me of? That reminded me of the choreography from the playground fight scene from Daredevil with Ben Affleck. That's what that looked like.
It did have that a little.
We're getting early 2000s shitty choreography and acting out of a fucking high school play, and people are talking about this thing like it's better than Game of Thrones.
All right.
Get out of here. The show is trash.
All right.
Sorry.
The show is trash, according to Carmine. Fred, you're the resident Lord of the Rings fan. What'd you think?
I wouldn't say resident, but I would say this episode to me was better than this week's episode of Game of Thrones. I thoroughly enjoyed this week's episode. We like you said, Carmen,
that's a big statement right there.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But
yeah.
We finally have some sort of direction, and I feel like we're actually moving to a conclusion, or at least to somewhat of a big battle of all the even all the ships leaving Numenor, and like, even the one that got blown up. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah. So
one's hiding on the ship, the other one's trying to blow it up. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah, then they
here?
start fighting. I'm just like,
yeah.
So I'm right in the middle, right? Like, I know, Fred, you were a Lord of the Rings fan. Like, the original movies, you were a big fan of those. Carmine, I kind of agree with you, was a little overrated. My opinion is that the episodes 1 and 2 of Ring of Power were really well done as far as like story setting and just kind of introducing the characters, getting us used to the world and that kind of thing. And then from there, it just was running in quicksand, and it just didn't move anywhere. But this last episode, I feel like we finally, according to you, Fred, I agree with you. We finally got like a definitive. This is what going forward the show is going to be focused on. I am very much interested in who is Sauron. How is like who is he hidden amongst? Is the stranger Gandalf? Like questions like that, I'm interested in. But I do feel like it's like we came out of the gate with too many main characters. And
too many factions. It's focused on too many at once.
You mean the same problem that Lord of the Rings has always had?
Well, no, but I thought they would have learned from Game of Thrones. Like Fred, you might not know this yet, but the original Game of Thrones show, and even the books, like they start off where you have a bunch of houses for sure, but they don't start introducing new house. They start like kind of, I should say, dropping breadcrumbs of like, oh, this is from House Harrenhal, but they're not really important until 3 seasons later. So at least when they come back in, you're like, oh, I remember that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my problem with Ring of Power in particular is that I'm pretty good with remembering names and the connections and all that kind of stuff. I am still so lost with Ring of Power. I see people and I'm like, wait a minute, all right, that guy's name is what now, and he's connected to who, and However, having said that,
everything in Ring of Power that I love so far is on Numenor.
Yep.
And the elven and dwarf relationship.
I agree. The whole stuff with the hobbits right now, I don't give a shit. I could care less.
The hobbits, I don't care.
The stranger is the only good part of that.
The stranger is the only one that I really give a shit about.
But you got to give it credit, Carmine. The visual, the quality of the show is like top notch.
Yeah, it's top notch.
I would say it has House of the Dragon beat as far as like the visuals, like the creatures on Ring of Power.
I don't know about that.
See, but I think the dragons look way too cartoony on.
Yeah, but see, like I think the I'll agree that the dragons on House of the Dragons look a little cartoony. That's why they're trying to keep them more in darkness, like because it helps with the effect of it all. But like when it comes to Ring of Power, like the orcs look like they're wearing makeup. Like they don't
really agree. I don't
agree with that.
We have to disagree.
I think the orcs look fine.
And some of the action scenes, especially like the first episode when she's hanging off when they're climbing up the ice cliff and they have that shot of her. It looked like She-Hulk level of CGI.
That did. That actually looked pretty bad. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
I can't argue that one.
I don't know. It just
seems... the first 2 episodes were pretty rough.
See, now the one mistake.
The third one I actually liked. The third one I liked. The fourth one took a dip.
Yeah.
But this latest one for me was their best one.
I agree, but again, though, because I think there's forward momentum now.
About it, like we're saying it's the best one because it took them 5 episodes to let us know where the story's going. Like that's the only reason why we're saying it's the best one, because in the other 4 episodes, nothing happened. You know what I mean?
The third one was more enjoyable for me. Just seeing like the elf that was actually like captured, him becoming a badass and trying to break out of it, like that, all that stuff was cool.
Yeah, that part was cool, but like the majority of the episode was beyond that. Was like just like, what are we doing?
I don't know. I'm finding things to like with it. I will admit though, one of the things that keeps me really tethered to the show is that there's a bunch of former Spartacus actors in it, and just the fact that they're in there, I'm gonna be interested. But I can anything with those actors, I'm into. So.
I was literally like, when those 2 actors were standing on top of that thing and they were just like, how are we going to fight all of them? I was just like, I was on my couch just like, I can't believe that this is the take that they let go on.
I mean,
like, what are we doing? Like, this is so bad.
I do like that we have like an origin story to Mithril, which is like the vest basically that saves Frodo in Fellowship of the Ring. I do like the whole kind of storyline with that tree that was like basically half light and half dark, and they're trying to kind of revive that to save the elves. I mean, there are, and then the whole mystery of who is Sauron, and is this stranger Gandalf, or is he Sauron landing on Middle Earth and all that stuff? Like,
or I like the leader of the orgs,
or is he Saruman? And it's like they're gonna pull the rug from us and at the end be like, no, he's not Gandalf. Yeah. Like there are some mysteries there that I'm interested in. Especially not being a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings. But I do think, and I've been saying this to you guys in the chat, I think for the last few weeks now, an hour for each show is just too long. The show
Yeah, it's
can't
a little
handle
long.
that weight. You know,
It's a little long for sure.
if
I
they
agree.
if they
Or-
shave 15 to 20
It's
minutes,
not a great. It's
it'll be
not a
alright.
great show. There's no
Right.
doubt about it.
It's
But
not a bad show.
What I'd rather them do, in all honesty,
what?
is instead of giving us 4 episodes where nothing happens, is give us 1 episode following Galadriel, right?
Galadriel.
Then give us another
Yeah.
Galadriel. Whatever.
That's what. Yeah, exactly.
Then give us another episode
a faction
following-
of episode. Yeah.
And then in the 5th episode, they're all coming together, and you're like, okay,
Yep.
Right. That would
now
be.
we know where this is going.
But see, I
It
feel like they have to
it
set
sounds
that up
like
though.
an in-season phase.
Yeah.
He just described a phase.
I feel like they'd have to set that up though, because if you look back at like The Walking Dead, for example, they set up, they brought in your main characters in the first like season, then they kind of expanded that group, but that by the end of season what was it, season 4, I think, when they get out of the prison, everyone is separated and each episode focused on one person or 2 people. And everyone liked it for that one season, but then when they did that again, I think after Alexandria at some point, everyone hated it. Everyone was like, this is the most bullshit shit ever. Like, I don't want to do that. So you gotta, it's a fine line to cross, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think they could have done it with the show because it's like it's already built into the myth and lore of Lord of the Rings.
I think the right choice is get rid of 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes off the show. I'll give you a perfect example of how they waste time. And I think it was episode 4 when Galadriel is caught by the Numenor guards, and that one guy is assigned to her, and basically is like, oh, you want to go visit like the Elven library? Here, take this horse.
Yeah.
And then they spent like a whole 5 minutes on her riding the horse like a child in a field. And I was just like, what is this? What is the point? We get it. She likes to ride horses.
There's
like
so much filler in every episode.
That's the stuff that they could definitely shave off, and it would make it feel a lot
so much filler in every episode. It makes me not want to watch it though. Like I get so bored with all the filler that I'm just like, all right, in this latest episode, we didn't need to see for 10 minutes the hobbits like walking and her singing the song and
that's another good example.
The stranger is, like we didn't need to see that. You could have cut that down to like 30 seconds and be like, we're going this way.
Yeah, and then the stranger Hulk smashing the ground.
Hulk smashes the ground with the wolf warthog things, whatever the hell.
Right. Well, because you know what the problem is that scene and even the scene that I mentioned, they don't tell us anything new about the characters.
Yeah,
like we get it. The hobbits are upbeat people that try to stay out of problems. Like, wait, I don't need to see them singing. I get it. That's what they are. You know?
Yeah.
She likes to ride her horse and travel and explore. I got that already. I don't need any more.
We want to see her be a badass, man.
Right, and I do have to disagree with you, Carmine, because the scene where she's training the soldiers in Numenor, I love that fight scene. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was really well done.
It was awesome.
The choreography was good.
You're not telling me that you were down with that choreography, bro.
I loved it. I really was into it the whole time.
My God, bro, it was so early 2000s for me.
The only scene that was early 2000s was the one scene where she ducks, like goes backwards and ducks under the 2 swords. The rest of it was really well done, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know.
I'll have to fight you on that one because I really thought that. I really like.
You know what it is because it's just too. It's like too clean for me. You know what I'm saying?
So it's like overly choreographed. It's like similar to like Iron Fist season 1.
Yeah, it's overly choreographed. Like, and it reminds me of, I don't know, like really bad like martial arts movies where it's overly choreographed and no one's, you could tell that like no one's really coming close to hitting anybody. Right. The camera goes off and it's just like, okay, now you guys do this, now I do this, now you do this, now I do this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When you look at, like, all right, so perfect example. We have something to compare it to, right? You look at the training scene in House of the Dragons with the kids and the 2 adults. That felt real. You know what I'm saying? Even though it was less choreography, it was less like, but it felt like they're hitting each other. It felt like they're fighting. And then when he takes him down and starts punching him in the mouth, if it's got a visceral feeling to it, whereas this was just like, try and hit me, boys! Ha ha!
I guess she's supposed to be the most experienced, and she's been like a lead. What do you call it? I guess a captain in the military of the elves
Yeah, I'm
for
okay with that.
hundreds of years. So like she would be more
And she's supposed to be faster
No,
than
but I'm
them. Like,
okay
right.
with that.
but
I'm
if you
okay
remember in
with
Lord
her
of the
being
Rings,
more.
Legolas is tiptoeing over the snow while everyone is just like trudging through because they just
Yeah.
elves are just different. They're built
Then
different.
let
You know
her
what I mean?
kick their asses.
She did though.
No,
She was
like
surrounded by like 8 of them, and they only
she
one guy
She
was.
sort of
she
kind of got a
Oh,
kicked
cut on
their
her.
like,
she
oh,
kicked
you
their asses
abandoned
without
me.
doing anything,
And
and
she looked just
that was
like
on
she looked like
purpose. That
Yeah.
was on
she looked
purpose.
just like Daredevil in Ben Affleck's version.
See, I don't know.
Looking over the sea
I don't
smoke.
We
know.
can go in circles about
That's
this.
a reach.
My problem with that scene, and this was my problem with a lot of even the Game of Thrones scenes, is they do quick cuts way too much. There's
Mhm.
no cohesion to the fight scenes because the actors clearly can't. They don't learn choreography, so they
Yeah.
just cut. You have no idea what happened. Watch that fight. Watch that. I know it's kids, but watch it again. You really don't even see what happened. Like, you see them swinging their swords a little bit. All of a sudden, one's on the ground
I
and
mean,
the other one's on top of him.
I was able to follow it pretty well, bro. Like, I don't know. I'd have to disagree with you on that.
I don't know, man.
I hated it.
So now with House of the Dragon, this is my number one question coming out of this episode. I wouldn't say I hated it. I lean more towards you, Fred, with the opinion on the episode. Did they need to recast
No.
Rhaenyra, Alicent, and
the Queen.
Lenore, whatever his name is? Like, there was no reason.
I think it's
There was no reason to recast, and I could not get into the episode with anything to do with Rhaenyra, knowing that it was a different. No offense to this actress. I could give zero shits of what was going on because she just wasn't delivering the lines in an enjoyable way that I knew.
See, but I think
the
that's
other actors
because
were doing.
Something Milcock. I can't remember the actress's name, but I think that's because she owned the character so well.
Yeah, she was so
that
sick.
it's like
she killed
I kept
it.
thinking this was a
She
different person.
Killed it.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was a different
Yeah.
person, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
And
she didn't play it the same. You know what
I
mean?
just
She
don't.
didn't
I
play
don't
it
see the
completely
point,
different.
especially because other actors weren't recast. So like the strong guy that ends up, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the show. There's the one strong brother that basically murders his dad and his brother, or his dad, I think, so that he could remain in King's Landing and whatever. Like, that actor was the same guy. So if you're not going to recast him, why'd you have to recast two of the other arguably bigger
everyone
actors
was
on the
the
show?
same.
It didn't make
They
sense.
could have made them look older and just
kept
the episode going. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's
it made
big.
it made
It's a
zero
10-year jump,
sense.
and them going from 14 to like 24, or 17 to 27, or whatever the ages are, like, would be kind of like a hard jump to like try and grasp with those two characters.
You're not changing your look that much though. Like
exactly.
Right, like when you're
Exactly.
18 and when you're 25, you basically look the same.
yeah.
Maybe you grow some facial hair as a guy.
Right.
Like,
I mean, it's just I wasn't
hated it.
really a fan of the time jump. Like, I was okay with the time jump rather, but I wasn't a fan of the recast.
I'm over the time jumps, man.
Like you said,
they're
Fred,
clearly.
like, I thought the actress that was playing Rhaenyra in the beginning was fucking fantastic.
She was great, excellent.
It was like 1A 1B. Her and Matt Smith, like they were just dominating the show.
Yep.
And now it's like we didn't have anything. Like even Matt Smith, I felt like was pulled away from what he was good at in the previous episodes. He was just like a shitty father, just like waiting for shit to happen. Like like.
I mean,
but I think that has more to do with his
get
like character development than anything, and I think we're gonna get back to like the crazy Damon now that his wife is dead.
Well, there's
I hope
there's only 4 more episodes left, right? And from what I am gathering, by the end of this season, we'll have the official start of the civil war amongst the Targaryens, meaning Rhaenyra and her kids versus Alicent and her kids versus Daemon and his kids, and then Hightower and all that stuff. And it'll just be like, going forward, there won't be as many time jumps because it'll just be focused on
I don't
that
think there's
war.
gonna be any more time jumps after this.
So I get why they're doing the time jumps, but I do feel like they're very quickly kind of sprinting towards this war when it's like Game of Thrones has always been about kind of the slow build and the payoff. I would take 2 seasons of them, as younger kids, like working Rhaenyra dealing with the court not taking her seriously, her dad naming her his heir, and like trying to navigate those waters and all that stuff. I would take 2 seasons of that before they get to
See,
the war, as long as you do it right, you know?
here's my problem, and it's probably because I know zero about Game of Thrones
Mhm.
lore. I'm so tired of seeing the king. Every time jump, he has a new sickness, and then like we time jump again, he's still there. He's still trucking along. Like kill this.
Yeah.
Like he should be killed off. Rhaenyra should be in power, and then start the conflict of people not
Well,
agreeing with what she's
so,
doing.
spoiler
Like,
alert,
I
according to
just
the history books, there's never been a woman in power. So that tells you kind of how it's going to end, I guess.
so it's never gonna happen. Okay.
Yeah. But however, I kind of agree with you. I don't care that every time they time jump, the king definitely has like when they showed him without an arm, I was like, oh shit, he doesn't have an arm now.
Yeah, like
But
his finger's okay. I thought it was chopped off like
but what I didn't
9
like,
years ago. Or
what I
whatever.
didn't like though was that at the end of the last episode, he's coughing up blood, he collapses. Then they end on a shot of
Dude,
him
he was
laying
dead. He was
there.
pretty much dead at the
Right.
wedding. He was dying.
They basically
Like,
said like, there's not much else we could do, and they just walked out of the room. So to me, I'm like, okay, that was it. Like, Rhaenyra is in charge, and then all of a sudden,
And-
6 years later, and he shows up without an arm, and I'm like,
yeah.
What?
6 years later, we have somebody who doesn't even look like the princess and
Yeah.
her random kids fighting a king who's died 7 times and his kids, and the fight scene, they're fighting each other, they hate each other, and they're teasing each other with dragon eggs. I'm like, what is happening in this episode?
well,
I
but
absolutely,
that is a big deal though, like lore wise, like the
I
youngest
guess,
kid.
but it was so
Yeah, the
boring
dragon
to
eggs.
watch, man.
No, but the
It was-
youngest kid, Aegon. Again, this is because I kind of know the lore, but Aegon, I believe his name is the youngest one that didn't have a dragon, and like his brother was making fun of him, and then he walked into the dragon's keep and ran after the dragon kind of shot fire at him. He, historically, he's gonna basically take over the dragon that burned. I can't think of all their names. The black Targaryen lady that got herself Dracarried at the end. He'll take that
The
dragon
seasoning.
after losing an eye, and he
Yeah.
becomes like a major fighter and like a big time, like a well respected
dragon,
dragon rider and stuff.
Congratulations.
So there's a lot of breadcrumbs there, but I think it's almost getting to a point where they're relying on people knowing
my
the
thing
source
is-
material, which you
It's
can't
like
really do that.
it's-
You alluded to, Chris, is that there's 4 episodes left, but in typical Game of Thrones fashion, we know that traditionally the finale is really the second to last episode of the season.
Yes, like episode 9 is when shit hits the fan, and then we see
And
the
episode
fallout
10
and
is
prep
like-
for the next season.
Yeah, and the fallout and prep for the next season is in the final episode. So I mean, which is if you've never watched Game of Thrones like Fred, it's something you have to get used to
Yeah.
with like a different way of watching a show.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like even me, like the first time I finally like got through season 1 of Game of Thrones, like the second to last episode, I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe all this happened, this is amazing. And then like the next episode, I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like,
Yeah.
I was so like, what? So it is a thing that they do. So in that regard though, that means that really we have 3 episodes until the finale,
Right.
Yeah.
not 4.
My
So-
biggest concern with with episode 9 of this season though is in season 1 of Game of Thrones, it was the big Ned Stark episode where he gets his head chopped off. Like, just because that happened and was a big talking point and sold a lot of people on the show in Game of Thrones does not mean they have to follow the same routine for this season show. And I'm afraid that they're building up characters as like our main characters just so they can kind of kill them all off.
Someone's gonna die.
Someone has
You know
to
what I
die,
mean?
but
like someone has to die.
I don't know. We'll
you
see what
know,
happens, I guess.
It's Game of Thrones.
We know it's not going to be the king.
no,
No, he's
No, I
he's
just
gonna get his
think
head chopped off in episode 9, and then episode 10 is gonna be like,
honestly
it's
don't
10 years
think
later,
he-
and he's gonna show up with his head tied
as
onto
a
his
White
body.
Walker.
And
Yeah.
he's gonna be like, oh guys, like
And it's a completely different guy.
he's gonna be like, my daughter's the heir. Remember that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, Fred. I don't think the King makes it out of this season. I don't.
No,
worry.
he's
I-
hope
clearly
so.
he can't. The
He
whole
can't.
the Civil War doesn't start while he's alive, so
yeah,
he's gotta die
be
to
dead
this
for the
season.
Civil War to
Yeah.
start.
yeah, because
I don't
then it
know.
becomes
all
a
I
power
know
grab.
is changing the actress changed my opinion on the show, and I hope it doesn't like
Right.
derail my
I mean,
excitement for it.
there's still time for them to win us over as the new Alicent and Rhaenyra.
I agree.
Based off of this one episode and just based off what we saw before, I see no
It's hard.
reason why they had to recast the show or the characters. It just doesn't
It
make
was
any sense.
it was a hard watch. It was a hard watch. I found
It was an
myself
odd choice to
hitting
make.
the button to see when this episode ended quite often. I was that
Wow.
like detached. I didn't care
My
for
problem
it.
is if they do another time jump, because I'm pretty sure they got to do at least one more to age up the kids a little bit so they can start fighting wars and shit. If they do another time jump, that'll be say 6 years, and they don't recast again, then what was the point of recasting the first time? Just use some makeup.
I agree with you that
I
they
don't
go
know.
through another time jump at some point. I have a funny feeling that that's how season 2 is just going to start.
Right, it's like this season will
It's
end.
going to start like 8 years
possible.
later or whatever.
It's possible.
And them just probably change the entire cast over one more time. But I agree with you guys on the fact of like this show was so good and on such a good track, and she was so good as Rhaenyra. Honestly, the Queen, I didn't notice much of a difference between the two actresses. Like I thought she actually did a pretty good job of getting the same tone, and like it almost I at first I thought it was just her dolled up a little bit more to look older.
Yeah,
and you know
it was
why?
less recognizable.
It was less recognizable.
It was a different person.
I could explain why. I could explain why 100% why you didn't notice the difference with the Queen, because the Queen from before the time jump was dealing with trying to like navigate her way into not being respected and having her voice heard, and the Queen after the time jump is now basically pushes her way and controls her own fate and kind of is loyal to her house and all that kind of shit. They're basically two different characters, so two different actresses could play them. But Rhaenyra,
she's the one trying
to
push Rhaenyra off the throne, basically.
Right. Yeah, and she went from before the time jump. She was kind of reluctantly like, I don't really want to push her away, but I still want her to be friends with me and blah blah.
Yeah.
At the very end of the last episode, it was like, no, all right, fuck it, I'm over it. You want to go at it? Let's go at it. So seeing that a different version of her essentially is fine. But Rhaenyra is the same shit. She wants to be the queen. She needs to have kids, to solidify her place. But she's trying to do it in a way where she survives essentially and be tougher than everyone else. Like it's the same character, and having two different actresses just doesn't. I don't. It just seems so unnecessary to me.
And none of the kids was with her husband, right?
No, they were all with. But we knew that they basically established that in the last episode that she was basically like, look, I'll bang who I want to bang. You bang who you want to bang. Just keep it between us.
Yeah. So. I mean, for me though, the good thing about the episode was that you did get to see a lot of like the storylines and how they've changed over the time jump. Like they did a good job of like showing you that Rhaenyra can't really deal with lying over and over and over again. Right. That she's got too many kids at this point, that it's just like, and she's trying to like find a way to make this work, even though she knows eventually it's just going to fucking blow up in her face.
I feel like they all know it's going to end up in war. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Like they all know what's coming. You can feel the tension. The tension is still there. Like even the stuff with Daemon where, he doesn't want to go back to King's Landing to get back into this. He just wants to be left alone from it all because he's tired of fighting with his brother, and he's tired of like all of the things. And then his wife ends up dying, so now he's gonna have to go back.
Right.
Like, there's a lot more story development going on in this episode. It's just, it was so jarring with the actress changes that a lot of it fell like kind of off to the side, because you're like, what the fuck? Like, why did they change her?
Right.
Right.
One of the things that bothers me too is that when you do the time jump like that, and especially if you have new actresses or new actors and actresses, then you have this kind of forced scene where you have to reintroduce all the different people that we technically should already know. It was
like an all new episode 1.
And that irritates me because it's just it's just a wasted section of the episode. So, I mean, listen, otherwise I still think, my opinion, House of the Dragon versus Ring of Power, House of the Dragon is the better show, I think. Overall, yes. Consistent show.
This week, it was a flip-flop for me.
I kind of agree. For me, they were both on an even playing field. I wouldn't say...
the acting was good in House of the Dragon.
I don't know. Yeah, but everything else was better in Ring of Power. I feel like the acting maybe was better in House of the Dragon, but everything else this week was better in Ring of Power.
I don't think the acting was better.
I thought it was all right. I thought it was good.
You rewatch the scene I'm talking about, bro. You can't tell me that that's good acting. You can't. I'm sorry. If you do, then you know nothing about any of this.
Dude, I can only tell you from what I watched, and I enjoyed Ring of Power, and I hated Game of Thrones. So from that alone, that tells me my answer.
On shit. You're like, they changed the actress. I'm out. I don't want anything to do with it anymore. Like, I'm done. They changed the actress.
But you all agree with me, whether you make fun of it or not. You all agree with me. So
but you have to take it piece by piece, bro. You can't say that the acting was better in Ring of Power when there's.
I can because I watched both shows. It was drastically different.
Like, how could we possibly maybe defeat the
That's a
orcs?
great impression.
Oh my god, bro! Like, it was terrible.
And then fast forward to Game of Thrones, and we have some weirdo kid on a balcony fucking jerking off. Like, what are we talking about here?
That was such a stupid
acting.
Scene.
Okay.
Listen, he sold me that he was jerking off above the ceiling.
Talk
we're
about.
Gonna start with Andor. We're gonna start with She-Hulk.
No, we start with Andor. We'll end on She-Hulk because that's a quicker conversation. Let's get into Andor because I'm excited to talk about this. How good was the first 3 episodes of Andor? Episodes 1, 2, and 3 were released last Wednesday.
I only watched 1 and 2, so let's start there. And then when you guys go into 3, I'm out.
It's not. Listen, technically, you could tell once you finish episode 3, they released it like that because episodes 1, 2, and 3 were essentially its own contained story. It's about how Cassian Andor becomes part of the rebellion. Otherwise. Yeah. There's nothing major. I'm sure there are some things that'll carry over, but there's nothing like super major that happens. It's all about how he gets involved with the rebellion, and that's basically what the 3 episodes.
Episode 3 did have some pretty major spots in it, you know.
Well, it did. It did have major Star Wars nods and some Easter eggs, but I mean, as far as like set up for later, I don't know that we got too much. You know, besides the Empire looking for Andor, stuff like that. I don't think we got too much. Real quick, Larry Luck said, I made the mistake of falling behind on Ring of Power and watched 3 episodes to catch up. Got a little king, but I'm digging it.
Episode 3 was awesome. Thank you. Awesome, yeah. Thank you. Anyways.
I do think Andor is basically the Star Wars show or property that I've been asking for. It's a gritty, serious.
I like the tone of it.
Adult kind of show.
Yeah.
There's no kind of campy jokes or like that. There's a few little bit touches of humor here and there, but it's all kind of like light humor to kind of ease the tension a little bit because it's all about fucking war and spy tactics and all kind of stuff. I freaking loved it. I really loved it from beginning to end. I love the way it looks. I love all the characters so far. It's just fucking good. It's a good show.
I love the tone of the show. My favorite scene, and I was hoping it would happen, but again, remember I didn't see the 3rd episode. So far, my favorite scene is when they were actually in the alley, and the guy was like begging for his life, and he was like, "No. We'll just say he fell. We're all good." And he's like, "Nope, fuck you. Bang, you're done. Yep. You're a witness." I was like, yes, thank you. I was so amped when I saw that.
Me too.
I was like, this is perfect.
I literally clapped.
Yeah, me too.
And I really think that the reason why I liked it so much is because when you first see Andor in Rogue One, it's a similar thing, right? He kills somebody at a kind of cold-blooded. But in that one, he had a reason for it. He needed to hide the fact that he got some information about the Empire. There was almost like a strategic reason why he did it. Here, he just did it to save his own ass. He knew that he got caught. He couldn't leave his loose end. I got to kill this guy.
It wasn't like a campy death, a Star Wars campy death. It was a straight up like drama. I'm executing you in this alleyway. It 100%. Was awesome.
And it's just the one thing I always, again, this is one of the reasons why I like Game of Thrones so much and like Spartacus and stuff is that the characters are so well rounded. There's like no one's all good. Some of them have to do shit for their own well being, regardless of who it hurts. And you don't get that in Star Wars. In Star Wars, besides Anakin, I guess, in Star Wars, everyone is either a hero or a bad guy. That's basically what it is. There's no kind of like shady characters. That's the reason why Han Solo was liked so much for a while. And then they kind of ruined that. So I love that they started off by basically being like, we're not going to sugarcoat it. This is war. This is the kind of shit that happens. They pushed the wrong guy. I love that he accidentally killed one person and then was kind of like, oh well, now I got to kill this guy. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
I hate that the guy died. By the way, like that made no sense.
Yeah,
He
he
just like
just
fell
headbutted
over
him.
and was like, I'm dead.
It was an odd death.
like that's a
Yeah.
hard headbutt. He must have a
But-
head of
Larry,
steel.
like Larry just said in the comments too, is like one dead body is the same as 2 dead bodies at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
you know,
I mean,
and I
Well,
love
yeah,
that.
so
I really love
as
that they
weird
didn't
as
try
that
to
guy's
redeem
death
it.
was, I love that he killed the witness.
100%.
It happened the way it needed to happen.
And
was
I
perfect.
love that they didn't after the fact try to redeem it by being like, oh, this guy was a piece of shit, rapist, whatever. It was like literally like, yeah, like, obviously he was trying to abuse his power, but like, no, you killed somebody. Like you murdered somebody
Yeah.
for no reason, and now you got to deal with some shit. You know,
Yeah.
really, really well done.
Well, then you get to see the bureaucracy of how the private security sectors or whatever they're
I
called.
love that.
The corporation, I think they're calling them.
Corporation security, whatever. Where he's like, no, we can't let this get out to the public. Like, what are you doing? Stop
Yeah.
investigating.
The chief of the security was like, "Who gives a shit? The
Yeah.
guy was a piece of shit."
Yeah.
And like, but the inspector was like, "Nah, I'm full investigating," and he had a whole team, but the
full-blown
chief doesn't know
investigating.
about it yet. But the
Yeah.
whole department's investigating. Like, I was
I
like,
wish you
all
saw
right.
episode 3. I don't want to ruin it for you, but I love the way that whole storyline ends.
Yeah, of course.
Larry Luck
Absolutely.
says Thrawn in the books is a great antagonist and not just a bad guy. He's a good example of a character that has not been brought to live action yet, but he's a bad guy, but there's a lot more shades to him than just like, oh, I want to kill people or rule the world and all that kind of shit.
He's coming in Ahsoka.
That's the thing too, is like, yeah, we're definitely gonna get him in Ashoka. But with Andor, like, it's gritty. It feels like spy thriller.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
100%.
that same feel to it, which is what it is. But like, it actually feels like that. It doesn't feel like Star Wars trying to do a spy thriller.
No, yeah, it feels like, I mean, beginning to end, it feels well
like a
done.
spy thriller.
Yeah, it lives in that world.
Yeah. So, and it's all, I like that they're not doing like a lot of overly used Star Wars things. Like, there's no Jedi, there's no lightsabers. Like, keep it to that.
And they got to keep
Not
it
yet,
that
at
way.
least. We
gotta
still
keep it
have
that way.
what 20 something episodes left.
Yeah, I really don't want them to do it. I want them to keep it.
I don't want them to do it
grounded
either.
like this.
Like, there's just
Yeah,
no point
but
to
we know the Empire's there. We're gonna get something.
Well,
some
unless
sort
listen,
of Sith Lord.
if you bring Vader in,
something.
similar to how you did it in Rogue One, and he's just this like force to be reckoned with, who's just coming at all costs, and you just can't stop this guy, I'm with you. But if they start like, I know everyone hates on me for this, but at the end of Mandalorian season 2, when Luke Skywalker saves the day, I was like, come on, can we get someone
It's
else?
the greatest moment in Star Wars history. Stop.
It should have been someone other than Luke.
shot.
I still will put my stamp on it. It should have been someone other than Luke. But anyway, I want I really like.
You
Oh,
want
man.
C-3PO? Like, who'd you want there? I don't
No, it
understand.
should have been. It could have been Ezra. It could have been any number of Jedi that survived Order 66. We clearly know that they didn't get them all because they keep popping up now. There's just Jedi all over the place that
They're
survived
definitely
Order
not
66.
Pokemon.
So what'd you say?
So they're definitely not Pokemon. They didn't get them all.
They didn't
Right.
get them all right. Larry Luck says, "Hope the story of Episode 3 is not over. Want to see the planet and the people. Does the Empire
They
come
keep
back?
this
Also, what
up.
happens to the guy spearheading the investigation? And we need to see the dark side of the rebellion. They are terrorists at points in time. We need to see that. I agree with you, Larry Luck. That's
that'd be
One
cool.
of the things that the new movies did
100%.
the best was they did show us the dark side of the rebellion. I mean, not the rebellion, the Empire, right?
right.
Yeah.
It's like,
But we need to see the other
like,
side
and
of
now
that coin.
this show needs to show us the dark side of the
Yeah.
rebellion, right? Because the new movies, the thing I'll give them credit for most is like the old movies, you never understood why the Empire was
Right.
bad.
They never showed
They
that.
just told you like they're bad. Like
Yeah.
Darth Vader's bad.
Yeah.
These guys
Yeah.
are bad. The Empire's bad. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. But they never really showed you anything. So you're always left wondering, like, why do they hate these guys so much?
Right.
I don't get it. Like, it's just that they're the Empire. Like,
Right.
the rebels fight the Empire, and that's it. There was no like dive into what the Empire did to make them so evil.
Right.
And then the new movies, you see them like executing towns, lighting people on fire, doing all types of crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
So in this show, if they show us the dark side of the rebellion and show us like the real like murderous side that they have to do on the rebellion and everything like that, I think it's going to be a good way of bringing that to life.
Yeah. They kind
I
of hinted
agree.
at that in Rogue One, right? When they had that.
A little bit.
There was the little battle scene in the middle of Jeddah, or Jeddah, not Jeddah. Yeah, Jeddah, I think it was the planet, where it was like you can kind of see that this battle just broke out of nowhere and these people are just trying to live their lives. There's that scary part of it. And then they show Saul Guerrera, and they basically reference how he basically is a part of the rebels, but his methods are a little too fucked up. So I think hopefully we get a cameo from him in this show.
They showed him in the trailer
for this season for Andor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there you go then. They'll bring him in, and he was flat out labeled a terrorist.
I think it's something else.
I don't remember seeing him in the trailer, but I mean, it's I could be wrong. We watched so many trailers and shit that who knows. Larry Luck says they did blow up a planet. I mean,
Forrest Whitaker, right?
Forrest Whitaker, yep.
Yeah. Larry Luck points out that we did see the Empire blow up Alderaan. That was our only moment where they actually murdered innocents.
Who gave a shit about Alderaan? Like nobody. Right. Like Alderaan could have been dicks. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like
it's funny when you blow up an entire planet, but when you do it from the perspective of the ship that's doing the blowing up, it doesn't seem like a big deal. They're just like
that's what I'm saying. Like yeah. But this show so far, man, like if they keep up this momentum and they keep it going like this is going to be knocked out of the park.
Yeah. I really like his backstory they set up too. I don't remember when they fully reveal it, Fred, so I apologize if this kind of spoils anything for episode 3, but the fact that he was an orphan essentially, or not an orphan, but he lost and then was picked up by this woman, and she was kind of like, I'm not gonna leave him to die.
I saw that in episode 2.
Like that's
cool, adoptive mom or whatever.
They've done a great job with not making everything so tropey, but also not making everything so black and white. You know what I mean? Like they've really done a good job of towing that line.
I will say that I hope we're done with the flashbacks, though.
I don't want to see. I feel like we are, but who knows? Yeah.
I like if this turns into a show where it's 24 episodes and there's because honestly, like until episode 3, when you get to the payoff of the flashbacks I really wasn't interested in.
Right.
I was interested in them until we got to the ship, and it was disappointing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, they're going to the crashed ship. Who's in it? Who could it be? I'm like theorizing in my head, and we get there, and it's like these random dudes that are just dying.
Like they could have cut the entire flashback parts out for me, and it would not have changed anything.
Yeah.
I don't hate the flashbacks, but only because they're informing the character actions in the future. It reminds me of the first few seasons of Green Arrow.
I was going to bring that up. Like it's very similar to that, but here's my problem. Eventually, those flashbacks in Arrow became fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like I was
Arrow had a weird 5-year plan of using those flashbacks.
Yeah.
So overused. I was done with the flashbacks in Arrow by like halfway through the second season. I never wanted to see that stupid fucking island again. Like, don't show me this island again, bro. Like, I don't want to see it. And I'm hoping that they don't do the same thing with this, where it's just like every episode, like, here's the flashback part, where it's like,
I don't think so. Based off the way episode 3 ended, I don't think they really need the flashbacks anymore. Again, unless they're going to show us some other thing. But my problem with the flashbacks in Arrow was that they stopped showing us or explaining why certain decisions were being made in the future. And they were just rehashing the same thing. Oliver learned how to fight and he could survive. And it's like, okay, yeah, we know that. So with the show right now, the flashbacks have served their purpose. But as far as Andor, but they very quickly can run out of real estate for those flashbacks. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we got to give them benefit of the doubt at this point.
It's a device that should be used very sparingly in any project.
When
you rely too much on the flashbacks, I think it tends to. Any show that I've watched where there's a multitude of like flashbacks like that, or even movies, like I'm just like, oh my god, like why are we doing more flashbacks?
Right.
Like flashbacks for me, if it helps piece together who this character is, then sure.
Right.
If it's just like random flashbacks of different scenarios of like, he failed to save this person that he liked. He's staring at the girl just get killed by the guy, It's like
we just sat through an entire season of Boba Fett that was all flashbacks, and it was just like, oh my god, like every episode.
Yeah.
Like
that's a perfect example. The flashbacks, excuse me, the flashbacks in Boba Fett. They never explained why he was suddenly not interested in being Boba Fett, why he wanted to be a hero to people. That's the wrong way to use flashbacks. One episode could have been him surviving with the Tusken Raiders. Another episode could have been someone else kind of showing him some sort of kindness on Tatooine. And then it would have made more sense to be like, this is why he doesn't want to kill anybody. He wants to actually work with these people.
I would have almost rather the entire first season of Boba Fett been not flashbacks, but the flashbacks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
show us, just make it in real time. Like him crawling out of the Sarlacc pit, going with the Tusken Raiders. Like, that's the episode. Like, stop showing us what's happening now, and show us just the entire way that he got to be to the end of Boba Fett. You know what I mean?
That's a whole other thing, though, because like, you know, like Boba Fett, you know how bad that show was when the fact that the Mandalorian showed up and suddenly the entire show became good.
Yeah.
Like strictly because and then they dedicated an entire episode to just the Mandalorian. That's how you know the show wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know, Larry Luck says, I think there's more to the ship and the aftermath for that planet. I agree. I don't think we're done.
I hope so.
Yeah, I don't think we're done what we see, but
there was no payoff to it.
Overall, though, this show was supposed to be, what was it, 24 episodes? I think 12 episodes now, and then 12 episodes.
12 part,
yeah,
2 12
so
part
like
episodes.
we might be done with the planet and that ship for now. But I can very much see them coming back to it at some point, maybe in the second half.
I hope we never do.
So.
I hope there's never another flashback in the show.
Yeah, I'd be okay. Well,
his mom is still back there, you know what I mean, and he's leaving. Spoiler alert, Fred.
I mean, like, listen, if there was anything, that I was gonna knock the show about, it is the flashbacks. You know what I mean? Right. And I just think they started to get by episode 3. I was a little bit like, okay.
Did you guys feel like visually the show like looked better than anything we've seen for the Star Wars shows on Disney Plus? Because like
visually,
well, there's a difference. Like, so the way this show was done, they actually filmed. They filmed on location. CGI. So they built sets. There's no green screen work. It's all, you know, that's physically there. Whereas Mandalorian and Boba Fett, it's basically like a giant green screen that's hooked up to a camera that digitally puts the background up. So when the actor's moving around and the camera's following him, the background moves with the camera. So they don't have to actually build a set. They can kind of just do it in the computer and say this is what it looks like. Some people love it. I personally think Mandalorian looks better overall.
It's a higher production.
That's what I'm saying. Like it just looks more Star Wars, I guess, if that makes sense. But I think the real locations fit this show better because of the fact that it's meant to be more of a like kind of down in the dirt kind of show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a grounded show.
Yeah.
Problem with all that type of stuff with this show is like every time a ship takes off, it looks bad.
Yeah. Is that TV budget or is that because they just aren't doing it right?
I don't know.
Mandalorian ships don't look bad.
Yeah, see, I feel like Mandalorian, they got it.
Infrequently in this show because they're not doing a lot of like flying around.
Right.
It didn't really bother me too much, but like it's noticeable. Like, especially like when he leaves right after he shoots the guy. And he leaves that planet, you're just like, oh, God, what was that takeoff? Like, what was that thing? Like,
it looks like Knights of the Republic, like PlayStation era, Xbox era, CG.
Very wonky CGI.
I think the hard part with Star Wars, especially with the ships, is that they have to get the weight of the ship down, and it's almost like they don't spend enough time on it to really make it feel like it's this massive ship lifting up off the ground and going into space. Without some giant rocket shooting it up there, you know what I mean? So,
there's some suspect, but again, it happens so infrequently that like, and everything like you said is like real life backgrounds and real life actors walking around, extras walking around and stuff like that. That it gives it a more real feeling. I think that maybe when the ship takes off, you're like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean?
I don't think they're done with this planet. I'm not going to spoil it for Fred, but there are certain characters that were severely affected by the things that happened in episode 3 that are still on the planet. So they will either come back or at least those characters will get involved.
Got to come back at some point. Yeah.
So overall, I give the show like a 9 out of 10. I really fucking loved everything about it.
Yeah,
I thought it was so good.
I'm with you with that.
The Shulk, I think they called her at some point in this last episode. Shulky. So what do you guys think about this last episode?
It was one of the better episodes of the season for me.
I liked it. It was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, if they just keep making fun episodes with her, I'm down because it seems like this show is not taking itself too seriously. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. It's supposed to be a lot of like hijinks and court drama and all that type of stuff. And the inclusion of Mr. Immortal.
Yeah. He was fantastic. He was the best guest star we've seen so far on the show. I really love when he was kind of like, then you guys can understand why I would kill myself to get out of that marriage. And they start lecturing him, and he just picks his hat up and just jumps out the window. That really won me over. I mean, he was a great character.
Yo, it's such a deep cut from Marvel too.
Yeah.
Like that's what I appreciate about the show is they're bringing in like deep cuts as far as like the random ass characters that they keep bringing into the show. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Larry Luck says he hasn't watched She-Hulk yet, and the season is starting to lose him a bit. I don't really blame you because the fact that each episode is its own kind of like little contained story for the most part, it does make it hard to stay invested for the entire season. But I do agree this is one of the better episodes visually. I think She-Hulk actually looked good for the most part.
She looked better in this episode. Yeah.
The little fight with her and Titania was better.
More fluid.
Much more fluid, you know what I mean? And the little tease at the end about the leader, which I feel like it's pretty obvious that that's who the big bad's gonna be.
I don't think it's gonna be.
Who do you think it's gonna be?
I just think it's gonna be.
I don't know.
Well, but that website Intelligentsia, right? Isn't that run by the leader, where he gets a bunch of other smart villains?
So there's a group
trash
of
talk
villains that are called Intelligentsia in the comics. I don't know if necessarily.
I'm pretty sure the leader. I mean, I could be wrong. You know the comics better than me, but I'm pretty sure the leader is there. Isn't he there? The leader? I don't know how else to say.
Is the leader.
He's in charge of the group.
He is, but it's like him, MODOK. Like there's a lot of like weird characters.
What's funny is we know MODOK is coming in Ant-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
Kang is going to be in Ant-Man 3. We know the leader is going to be in Captain America, right? New World Order.
I think that's why it's not going to be the leader in this because like.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe whatever the villain is here is leading to the leader. Why do they have to call him the leader? I feel like I'm saying lead too much now. It's fucking annoying.
But like. And that's what I love about the show. They show us the Wrecking Crew. Like they've showed us Mr. Immortal, who was a part of the Great Lakes Avengers, like the most absurd Avengers team of all time. Like
I will tell you right now, the best joke payoff that we've ever gotten on the show so far is Mr. Immortal casually dropping that he killed himself to get out of a marriage. Mr. Immortal then casually jumping out of a window to get out of being yelled at. To then him basically being attacked by all his ex-wives, standing up, and both lawyers like, no, buddy, you're not jumping out of a window this time.
You're not getting out of it. And I love those two lawyers too, man. Like they're so good in this. Like
I was about to say,
fantastic.
can we talk about She-Hulk's friend? Because
she's
as
great.
Paralegals, she's crushing it. Yeah,
absolutely,
she's crushing it. Yeah, she's doing so well.
She's stealing the show for me. She's one of the more entertaining people on the show. Larry Luck asks if there's going to be a main bad guy to the show. That's what we're talking about right now. At the end of the last episode, there's a very clear, tease for an actual behind-the-scenes bad guy trying to get She-Hulk's blood, and they don't show who it is, but they drop a few hints. Intelligentsia in the show is a website. In the comics, it's basically a group of bad guys who are all super smart, led by the leader, if I remember correctly. And then we also know the leader is going to be the bad guy in New World Order, the Captain America movie coming out. So my money is on it's going to be him, or at least hinted at him. But Carmine, you might be right. It could be another bad guy with intelligence that kind of connects to the leader.
I think it's going to be. Well, I think they already showed us who the bad guy is. I think it's going to be the
guy who wanted to date with her.
Yeah, that winds up being at her law firm. That guy.
Yeah.
Because he just seems like that specimen crack was just so like looks like he's trying to get her blood.
Like it was clear Easter. Like, it was clear breadcrumbs.
Which guy are you talking about?
She went on a date with a guy who was like, "So you're super strong, huh?" She was like, "Yeah," and then he says something like, "So what other powers do you have? Can you do this? Can you do that? Do you have impenetrable skin?" And she goes, "Yeah, I think so. And at least from anything on Earth." And he goes, "Even vibranium?" He gets all like serious. And then you're right. Then later on, he suddenly appears at her law firm. It's like to give the guy two scenes like that, it kind of random. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know who he's going to wind up being as far as like a Marvel character. I'm sure somebody.
Right.
But again, like that's why I don't think it's going to be the leader. But I mean, listen, man, it's a fun show. It's low stakes, but it's also giving us some threads in the
tiny
overall
ones,
MCU.
Tiny ones.
Even with her like calling Bruce again. Like, where have you been?
Him not answering. That's a big one, right? Yeah. That's a big one. I do think that my one complaint about this episode is the fight with her and Titania at the end. ended so weird to me. Like, so Titania, they show in this episode, and even when the
She got
courtroom
humiliated.
scene,
That ended it for her.
no, but
Her
like
being humiliated.
my thing is like they showed her kind of being conniving a little bit and being a little smarter than you might think. So in this episode, you see her come out and she kind of manipulated her way into the wedding, and like it was like almost like, oh good, she's out thinking the Hulk because she can't physically beat the Hulk, and then out of nowhere she's like, well no, of course I came here to fight you. Well, you're a bitch, and I was like, well you can't beat her.
Well,
And then
that's why
she loses the fight.
She waited for
I
her
guess.
to pretend to be drunk and was like, all right, Hulk up now, let's go.
I guess. But then
not knowing that
she loses.
Like, turns
right.
Hulk,
it just annoyed me that she loses the fight because she smashed her veneers. I'm like because you tripped over your own shit and smashed your like.
Because all she cares about is her image at this point. She just cares about her image.
Much larger fight between Shield.
Larry Luck asks a very legitimate question. He says, "Can we discuss why would Daredevil go to the West Coast for a new helmet?"
Yes.
That's a great question, Larry Luck, and the answer is he's not the same Daredevil from Netflix.
Yeah, he is. It's Charlie Cox. We know it's Charlie Cox.
It's the same actor, but recast. They recast Daredevil just like they recast Allison and Rhaenyra.
I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
I think he's just going to be in LA and needs a suit while he's in LA. I think that's what it's going to end up being too. Because Daredevil Born Again, the show, you can't have a Daredevil show that's not taking place in New York. So, like, there's no reason why he would be in LA. So, I agree with you. I feel like Matt Murdock goes to LA for whatever reason. Maybe sees that some shit's going down. Sees She-Hulk is kind of like, what?
It's got to be a lawyer shit.
And he tracks down this person to make his suit. You know what I mean? Or
I agree with Larry though that the dude lawyer is also
paralegal. The dude lawyer.
He's one of my favorite actors. He was one of the best villains in Arrow.
He was. I would argue he was tied for the best villain on Arrow.
Yeah, him and Slade.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say like Deathstroke's got to be my one.
Deathstroke is easy number one,
and that.
But he was Adrian Chase in season 5 or 6.
Yeah,
5.
And
he was fucking
amazing,
great.
Bro.
And the way that's amazing. Just not to go on an Arrow run, but the way that season ended with them on Lian Yu, but like Deathstroke fighting with Arrow, fighting with the Al Ghul, not Talia al Ghul. What the hell was her name?
And him actually winning.
And him that they just made up.
Yeah. But like there was a big group fight, and then in the end, they think they won, and then the island blows up anyway. I mean, they didn't pay it off well because the very next season started, and I was like, oh come on. But it was just he really almost stole the show from Deathstroke as the best villain on. That's how good he was.
Phenomenal. So. He's a great actor, and he's awesome.
He's actually just like the guys on Spartacus. He's one of those actors officially for me now where when he's in something, I'm immediately like, okay, I'm going to watch it because I just liked him so much. You got
to at least check it out and see what the show's
100%,
about. Yeah,
100%.
For sure. Agreed.
But yeah, so you guys heard it here based on She-Hulk. There's really not much else to say about She-Hulk, to be honest.
I will say I enjoyed her being Jen more in this episode, trying to navigate the wedding and being the bridesmaid, even though she was there as just like take care of all the ironing and walk my dog down the aisle.
That was sitcom-y. It was kind of nice though to see her as Jen finally want to be the Hulk, and nobody wanted the Hulk, and then she's like, "Oh, come on, man!" Like,
you know what I've noticed too, and this goes back to like the CGI thing, is that ever since episode 1, they have not shown her transform into the She-Hulk.
What do you mean? Not fully, I guess, right? They show like little scenes. Like they show her hands getting big, they show her foot getting big, and then suddenly she's Hulk.
Yeah. Except for when she's fighting the Wrecking Crew, where she grows.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even that is like they show her feet busting out of the shoes, and then she's just She-Hulk.
Right.
Yeah.
Like even in this episode, when she's sitting there, like they show her feet busting the shoes, and then her vision starts centering, and then all of a sudden it cuts to her being She-Hulk. So I think they're trying to save a lot of money with the transitions.
I hope so.
Can I just throw a hot take out here though? Like this version of Hulk, or not this version of Hulk, She-Hulk doesn't need to be 10 feet tall, right? She can just be a little bit like taller than she is in regular form, much more muscular than she is in regular form, and green. So
she's shorter than Bruce though.
But that's my point though. So why not go with the Lou Ferrigno route and hire a female bodybuilder and literally go like the old school Hulk route, have a quick transformation, whatever, zoom in on the eyes, old school shit, and then it's a bodybuilder painted green, fucking smashing shit in real life, and then you don't have to put any money into the CGI. You know what I mean?
I think that would work as far as like a visual standpoint, but when you get into the acting of it, like it's still her acting as She-Hulk. You know what I'm saying? So like
that's
then
true.
You lose the Tatiana Maslany.
That's true. That's I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Because the difference between the Hulk and Banner is one barely says a word and just grunts and destroys things, and one talks and has a personality versus her. But
and like, she still has to act like she still has to be a lawyer.
My problem is when they bring her into a movie and they throw a Hollywood, Marvel style movie budget behind it, and they make her look flawless. How are we ever going to go back to a She-Hulk show? You just can't do it.
When you go back and watch it, they're going to have patched it with the new.
Yeah,
patch it like they patch everything.
That's true,
else.
I guess. Yeah.
That's how.
I mean, listen, for
I don't
me,
think we're going to get multiple seasons of this though.
We might not. We don't know, right? We don't know what we're doing.
Maybe a second. Like we don't know what they're doing with the shows still. Like we know that Loki season 2 is getting. We're getting Loki season 2.
I have a question with Loki, and this can be when we're done with She-Hulk completely. It could be because I'm forgetting maybe the ending of Loki, but the TVA is in an area where time doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, sort of, yeah. Okay.
So why was a new Kang and all this stuff changed in the TVA and people forgot him?
So we're going to find out. I believe we're going to find out in Ant-Man Quantumania, and I believe the TVA exists in the quantum realm.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe the TVA exists in the quantum realm. I think that we don't get answers for that specifically until Loki season 2. Because Loki season 2, pretty much, they said it at D23, it starts immediately where Loki season 1.
Yeah, where it left off.
Right. And I think
we're getting a Kang in Loki season 2.
Well, see now, so I disagree only because in the footage shown for Ant-Man 3, they say, they haven't shown the footage, they just described it, that Scott, his daughter, and Wasp go into the quantum realm for whatever they're doing, come across like a city, a civilization, whatever, that's been ravaged or is in the middle of being kind of ravaged by something, and it turns out that that's Kang and his army. I'm wondering if that city they go to is the TVA. So, because like Loki season 2 is supposed to end and go right into Ant-Man 3.
World. Oh, it could be Mojo World.
Yeah, it could
be
Mojo
World. That's why MODOK's there.
That would actually explain that then. So maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm telling you,
I still think we get a variant of Kang and Loki.
I think we do too. We got one already, so why wouldn't we get variants? You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to get the real Kang the Conqueror. I think we'll get just other versions from different time periods and stuff like that.
I mean, for the most part, I don't think we see him until the end of the season.
If you haven't already, like and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, the whole 9. And we have a Patreon now. We'll put up some more and more details about that as we keep adding content. And we'll talk to you guys later, man. Thanks guys for jumping in.
Yeah.
And I will talk to you guys next week.